I've been marketing for over 4 years. I've generated over $25 million in cash for my company. I've taken a portfolio company from zero to over $650,000 a month in just 4 months. I've spent over $4 million of my hard-earned money on paid advertising, and I've launched over 2,200 marketing campaigns for our clients. Here are 38 marketing lessons that will make you more money. Number one, define and document what qualified means for your company. I would say that 70% of marketing and sales arguments could simply be solved by just identifying who you would say is qualified when they're speaking with your sales team. Because what happens most of the time is sales are down, sales blames marketing saying these leads aren't qualified, marketing blames sales because they say that they're not closing these leads, and you as the business owner is left holding the bag because you're just losing money every single month. Instead, actually write down what makes somebody qualified. Get your marketing team together, get your sales team together, or if it's just you define this by yourself, it'll be even easier, and use things that are measurable, meaning don't say that someone's qualified if they have a certain amount of intent, because it's very difficult to measure a level of intent. However, you could say someone is qualified if they've been following you for a certain amount of time, if they have a certain amount of income, if they are a certain type of business or a certain type of person, if they have a specific type of problem. All these things you can get either from your tracking systems, your marketing systems, or simply by asking the prospects. And then once you define what it is and everybody's on the same page, then you document it. You put it inside whatever your company's knowledge base is, and you can review it every quarter to make sure it stays updated. But this way, whenever your marketing team is saying, okay, we need to generate more leads and calls this quarter, they make sure that they are optimizing all of the messaging for whoever that qualified person is. And sales, whenever they're trying to close deals, are making sure that they're only spending time with people who are qualified. For example, some of the things that we use to define a qualified lead at our company is whether they're making over $5,000 a month in their business and if they acquire clients through a sales call. That brings us right into lesson number 2, which is qualify as early as possible in your marketing system. This is important because the earlier you qualify, the easier it is on your business. If you qualify too late, like let's say right before someone takes a sales call, then you're going to have a lot of wasted time and energy in your marketing system. So let me kind of draw this out for you using something that I call the qualification funnel, which I have another YouTube video on. So in the qualification funnel, you really only have a few different areas in any marketing system that you can pre-qualify your prospect. So the first is going to be in your targeting. Okay, so who are you targeting in the first place? So for example, if I was going after Fortune 500 CEOs, would I run an ad on TikTok to just everybody on the platform? Probably not. It probably would be easier if I were to download a list of Fortune 500 CEOs online and either upload those to the platform or send them messages directly. So the first place that you can do make your whole marketing system easier for pre-qualification is in the targeting. The second place is going to be in the messaging. So after we get the targeting down, then what are you actually saying top of funnel? For example, I had a client that I was on a call with the other day, and they were saying, our qualification rates are so low, our no-show rates are so high, majority of people aren't buying, they're not financially qualified, they're not this, they're not that. And I said, great, let's pull up your full marketing system and let me audit it. And the first thing I went to was his ads library. I looked at all of his ads that he was running. And what he was saying at the top of the ad was something like, what do influencers like Ryan Serhant, Iman Gadzhi, and all these people have in common? And it was positioned almost like a make money online offer. Like, hey, here are all these famous people. Do you want to be like them? But their real offer was something around like serving business owners and helping them establish credibility to close more deals. And so I was showing them that, okay, your top of funnel messaging, you're attracting people by going after this desire to be famous, instead of saying at the very top of your ad, are you a business owner looking to get more authority through content, right? So just by saying that at the very top, you're going to get a way higher throughput and way more qualified people coming through the rest of the funnel. So even if you change nothing else, just by changing the messaging that people see first, it'll make it easier on the rest of your marketing systems throughout the process by only attracting those specific types of people that we defined when we defined what a qualified lead was. The next area for qualification in our qualification funnel is going to be your app questions. So when somebody books a call with you, are you just letting anybody book a call and get on the calendar to speak with you? Or do you filter people based on some of the questions you ask when they're booking their call. Hopefully it's the latter, because if you ask them some point blank questions right when they're booking the call, it can prevent you from having to manually qualify and cancel people on the off the calendar later on. So for example, one of the questions that we ask on our calendar questions is, are you this type of business that we serve? Just yes or no. And we say, if it's a no, then just leave this page immediately. And just by doing that, by being super point blank, sure, we have a lower volume of overall booked calls, but we have a higher volume of qualified booked calls. And so we automatically cancel anybody that says, no, they're not that type of business. And so think about what can you add to your booking process, your application process, to make it super clear that, okay, if you've made it this far, our targeting was on point, our messaging was on point, and you're still not the right person for whatever reason you're on this booking page, well, just don't book the call if you're not this person, and you'll save a lot of headache later on. And the final stage that I'll put here for a qualification funnel is going to be sales. And this is where you have appointment setters calling and confirming calls, sales coordinators, your salespeople speaking with people and trying to qualify them in the discovery phase of the sales call. And so this is at the bottom of our funnel, and it's the least leverage. So if you are having all of your appointment setters and sales coordinators and salespeople tie up all of their time with all these unqualified people, then it's going to be very difficult for you to scale your business, which is why in our company, our average salesperson brings home around $300,000 to $400,000 a month in cash for the business, right? Where a lot of the clients that we work with, they have salespeople bringing home $50,000 to $80,000 a month in cash. And the biggest difference between those two is that we have a more efficient qualification system, so we don't need as many salespeople. This takes us right to lesson number 3, which is to create a call scoring system. So even if you do everything that I talked about in lesson number 2, and you're making sure that you're only getting qualified people on the calendar, well, you and I both know that even qualification has a spectrum to itself. So yes, these people have passed our definition of what qualified is, and they've answered the questions correctly, but there are some people in that group that are going to be hotter or more likely to close than other people. And when you're really starting to scale, it's beneficial to create some kind of scoring system, because even though you could get somebody who is quote unquote qualified, they might be at the bottom end of that spectrum, and you really want to get the people that are at the top end of that qualified spectrum, the people that are your dream clients that you'd love to work with, because we don't really want to optimize all of our stuff around just the most absolute dream clients, because that might be a subsegment of a subsegment of a subsegment, and you and I both need to make money until we get to the point that our marketing system is only attracting those dream people. So the qualified one is pretty much like, this is our floor. This is exactly who we know we can help and we know we close deals from. And then above the qualified is going to be that little spectrum that you can create a sales call scoring system on. So just to kind of give you an example of what one of these looks like, so once again, I have another video that covers this. You typically are going to have different like segments of your scoring system, different categories. So one could be the revenue level of the person that's coming in. The other one could be the type, let's say, of person or type of avatar, a type of business that they are. Another one could be the geography of that person that they have, right? And the other one could be the quality of their application answers. So like how in-depth were those answers? And you're scoring all of these on 1, 2, 3, 4 on a spectrum here. And so for example, I said earlier that somebody that's making $0 to $5,000 a month, they're not defined as qualified. But $5,000 to $10,000 a month, that is at our level 2 on our scoring system. So I'll just put 5 to 10K here. So that means that sure, we can help someone if they're 5 to 10K a month, but that's not exactly who our ideal avatar is, because we know historically those are the people that are the most likely to no-show. Those are the people that are most likely to, the least likely to close, the least likely to pay us in full or pay us the most amount of money in cash. So I'm not going to say no to this business if it comes in, because we know that we definitely can help them, but I also don't want to optimize our sales calendar and our marketing systems for just those people there. Another great example is going to be geography, right? So for example, for us, if somebody is in the USA, they're a 4, because we know that if you're in the USA, you're more likely to buy on the spot. You have a shorter sales cycle because you're used to this, versus what we learned is people that are in the UK, they will still close, but they have a 7 times longer sales cycle than somebody in the United States. That's our average for people in the UK, because they're more skeptical. They're not used to just seeing an ad and buying right away, or getting on a sales call and doing it in 1 or 2 call closes. So once again, we will still take these people, but they're not as as important to the business as somebody who, let's say, is in the United States. So if you've noticed, a lot of these lessons so far have to do with optimizing the efficiency of your marketing system. And I'll talk more about leads and getting more leads and stuff like that later. But if you can do this, then you're eking out more per appointment setter, per salesperson. It increases the efficiency of your overall organization. Your revenue per employee goes way, way up, and it just simplifies your entire business, making it an easier business to manage and scale. Lesson number 4 is that marketing should be doing about 90% of the work, with sales doing the last 10%. I see this mistake a lot in our clients' businesses whenever they first come to work with us. And what happens is that marketing is literally just generating a warm body. They're generating a name, email, phone number, and they're passing it off to sales, and they're saying, sales is not doing a good job. They're not closing deals. And so the CEO has to hire all of these appointment setters and all of these salespeople and these sales coordinators just to deal with this huge influx of leads. And marketing thinks they're doing such an amazing job because they're getting all these name, email, phone numbers. But in reality, marketing is infinitely more scalable and more leverageable than sales, because sales relies very heavily on bodies, on human beings. It relies on employees and contractors, and anything that relies on people, on labor, is much less leverageable than something that could rely on systems or on content or on software like media, like marketing, right? Marketing can have one ad have a top of funnel call out saying, hey, are you this person? And one person can write that one line of copy, and it attracts all of the dream clients, versus having 10 people that are appointment setters having to deal with this influx of leads to see if they're that person or not. So I hope that makes sense, but we have a really great ratio of sales and appointment setters to leads and calls that we have, because we spend the majority of our time, energy, and effort trying to make sure the people that are eventually making it to the sales call, they are as qualified as possible, which all comes down to marketing. So for example, if I were to draw this out like almost like a little spectrum here, let's say up to here is marketing, right? So I'll just put this here is marketing, and here is sales. So what do I exactly mean by this? Well, in marketing, you have obviously ads, you have call outs, right? You can have your video sales letter. Some of this stuff I'll talk about later on, video sales letter. You can have your email blasts, right? These are all ways that one person could do all of this stuff and run a multiple 7, if not an 8-figure business from marketing. You only need one person to do that. While that same one person in marketing that's doing all of that stuff there, because of the power of leverage, because they're able to run one ad and reach 1 million people, because we're able to create one video sales letter and have 1,000 people watch it, one marketing person, you might need 3 to 4 people in sales. So you might need a sales coordinator, right? So I'll just put coordinator. You might need 2 salespeople, so I'll put salespeople, right? You might need a setter, and these people are doing things like additional qualification. The salesperson's like handling objections, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're getting from marketing and the person is like literally just a warm body, and they're just like, oh yeah, I heard of your business one time, and you're passing them off to your salespeople, it's an incredibly inefficient system. So instead, marketing should be identifying, educating, entertaining these prospects, and getting them excited for the sales call, at which point sales will take it from there all the way to the close. Lesson number 5, personal brands are not exitable, but they can help you create something that is. I can't tell you how many times I speak to somebody and they say, oh, you're different, you're not going to exit your company. I don't want to build a personal brand. I want to create content because I want to sell this company in the future. And it really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It does in the fact that, yes, it's very difficult to sell a company that is tied to the founder. There's no doubt about it. It's not impossible, but it is very difficult. But you're missing out on what is arguably the most valuable thing that you can do for your company today, which is to create a personal brand around it. Because in the very early stages, when you don't have a lot of money and you don't have a lot of attention, it's really valuable to be able to lean on the founder, their story, who they are, their personality, in order to start generating that money and attention. And then eventually that founder can shift that money, that attention, that trust over onto somebody else in the company, like some kind of talent, or even the company and the brand itself. And some of the largest companies in the world have done this exact same thing this way. And so just to say in the very beginning, I'm not going to create a personal brand because I don't want a personal brand when I'm exiting the company in 3, 5, 10 years. It just makes no sense. You're getting rid of the main benefit that you have as a small early stage company, which is that you can be scrappy with a personal brand, and you're avoiding the problem of large companies later on that are trying to exit, which is that they can't use a personal brand. So it's like the worst of both worlds. So you might as well leverage it in the very beginning so that you can really start building that capital, and then maybe eventually just shift purely to paid ads or maybe cold email or cold outbound. But to not use it in today's day and age is a huge mistake. Lesson number 6 is to create a sales process that you'd want to go through. This one's kind of funny because most people don't think of it this way. They are thinking, I want to do what's best for the business, what's best for the business. And they're not realizing that what's best for the prospect during this sales process is very likely going to be what's best for the business. And so if you're making your prospects jump through all these different loopholes and do all these insane things before they're able to even learn what it is that you do, and you wouldn't want that same treatment, then you need to change your marketing and sales process to match the treatment that you'd want, especially because the majority of people I know watching this video, you're selling to your former self. So most businesses that I know, they're solving a problem that they first experienced on their own, and then they solve that problem, and now they're solving that for other businesses that were just like them. And so that means that their prospects very likely are just like them or were just like them back when they first had that problem. So then it's very easy for you to say, how would I like to experience this sales process? Because this is going to be likely what my prospects want to experience as well. And a really great example of this, at least what I see in my industry, is in the post-booking process in a sales system. So this is when somebody who's already booked a call to speak with you, and they book the call, and then all of a sudden they get like 14 text messages from random phone numbers that are no, you can't reply back to, 6 different emails, 3 different calls, and none of them is a salesperson that you're eventually speaking to. They're all automated messages. They're all from the Calendly or the software subscription that you have. And it's almost overwhelming. And it's also like, watch this video, watch this video, watch this video, watch this video. You know, are you going to buy? Are you going to buy? Are you going to buy? All before they've even gotten on the sales call in the first place. And what I realize is that most of the time that scares people away, right? Or they're just like, whoa, this is way too much. Like, I was just trying to figure out, like, learn a little bit more about you guys or what you do, et cetera, et cetera. And so I say this because this is exactly where we were. It was like a year and a half ago. Our show rates were terrible. They were like 40%. And I had a marketing, a CMO at the time. And I asked him, I said, have you ever actually like booked a call to speak with our company before to see like what that process is like? And he's like, no. So I had my girlfriend, I went through her phone and I booked a call. I didn't tell anybody else in the company. And what I got through the next 2 to 3 days before I showed up for that call was just, for lack of a better word, it was a cluster you-know-what. It was just like all these different random numbers texting me with different messages and different videos. And it was a really poor experience. And I didn't even, for my own company, I didn't even want to show up to that sales call that was happening in 2 or 3 days. And so we just totally revamped the entire post-booking experience to make it way quieter, way less aggressive, way simpler, and communicating directly with the person who booked the call and the person they're going to speak to on the call so they can start building that rapport beforehand. And since I did that, our show-up rate shot up to over 88%. Marketing lesson number 7. Prospects are more skeptical than ever, and they're doing their research online. I did a reel on this on my Instagram the other day that went a little bit viral, but I kind of showed this was what the old marketing system used to be. This is what it used to be 3-4 years ago, right? You ran an ad. That ad took people to a video sales letter, and then from there, they booked a call, and from there, they closed, right? That was what the old sales system and marketing system was, and it worked very well. However, the level of sophistication in the marketplace right now is the highest it has ever been. And so people are doing their research online, and they're incredibly, incredibly skeptical. The General Social Survey, the longest person-to-person trust study done in the world, shows that we're at the lowest point of person-to-person trust in the last 40 years. And so what is more likely what's happening right now is prospects are seeing an ad. And then once they see the ad, they don't even click on the ad. They go Google the person online. And then once they Google the person online, then they look at, let's say, their YouTube. And then once they check out their YouTube, then they go check out their Instagram. And once they check out their Instagram, then they click the link in the bio and they watch the video sales letter. But they don't book a call right away. Then they get a few emails in their inbox and they do check out their emails. Then when they click on one of the emails, they decide, you know what, I'm ready to call, but first let me check out their Trustpilot reviews online. Let me make sure they're legitimate. And then after they check out their Trustpilot reviews, then they book the call. But then after they book the call, they're not closing right away. They might need a second call because the first call they're a little bit skeptical. They need case studies, proof, something like that. And then they finally close and they become a client at that point there, right? So the difference is staggering. And this is not siloed to just my business. This is a lot of other businesses out there. And this is also only going to become worse as, let's say, the economy, if it doesn't get better or we're headed to some areas that might not be the best, then people are going to be tighter on their purse strings. They're going to be more discriminatory on how they spend their money. And so if you're expecting to just run an ad to a video sales letter, get on a call and close people, you're going to be sorely mistaken in the future. And most people, they play the ostrich head in the sand approach where they say, oh, you know, that's too much work, so I'm just going to put my head in the sand and do the same thing that I've done for the past 4 years. Yet they're wondering why they don't have the same return on ad spend they had 4 years ago, why their marketing message, they have less book calls, people are taking longer to close, why their return on ad spend is half of what it used to be, et cetera, et cetera. It's because they're sticking their head in the sand. And you don't have to do all of these things here, but if you don't have one channel, which I'll talk about some of the channels I recommend later, if you don't have one channel or something when somebody types your name in Google online, then you're going to be missing out to your competitors that do. And that's the funniest part about this. I actually talk about this all the time. So, you know, I'm in a pretty competitive industry, but I don't mind it because what happens is my competition, they are creating a lot of pain in the marketplace. They're running ads and saying, oh, are you not able to generate leads, calls, and sales? Like, you know, you need to have this and this and this. And so they're generating all this pain. And so then that prospect is going onto YouTube or going on Instagram to doing more research. How do I solve this pain? And then they're going to find me. They're going to come into me and they're going to say, wow, yeah, I'm learning all this stuff from this guy. And who do they end up buying from? The person that agitated the pain in the very beginning, or the person that alleviated some pain, they learned some stuff from, they got exposed to for a pretty long time, and then they bought, right? It's obviously going to be the latter of those two. So if you're actually going to invest into creating content online, creating a brand online, then you're going to benefit from everybody who's not doing that, yet still running ads and attracting attention. And to really drive this point home, Google came out with a study a few years ago called the 7-11-4 rule, saying that on average, it takes 7 hours of content across 11 touch points in 4 different locations to turn a stranger to a buyer. And this was pretty revolutionary at the time because what was believed, what happened is exactly what I showed you previously. Somebody saw an ad or something. They called this the stimulus. So they're like, oh, this is interesting. And then they go to what they call the first moment of truth. So I'll put first moment of truth right here. And this is when they're speaking with their sales team. They're watching a video sales letter and they buy the product or service. And then there's something called the second moment of truth, which is when they actually experience that product or service. And they say, wow, this was really good. This is really bad. Let me tell my friends about it. This person delivered on what was promised. And this is what it was for a very long time. But Google talks about in the study that today there is actually a new stage, which is called the zero moment of truth. And this is where that 7-11-4 rule comes in. This is where someone's getting see an ad, they're getting stimulated, but then they're doing a lot of research online before they eventually get to that first moment of truth, which is booking a call to speak with your team and potentially buying. So it's not just me telling you this in a video right now. This is literally published by one of the largest companies in the world who has billions of data points on buyers saying that you have to start focusing on that zero moment of truth in your company. Lesson number 8 is to focus on product-led growth, not sales-led growth. Sales-led growth is very manual, and this is what the majority of companies do. This is where they're generating leads, they're generating calls, and the prospect's first opportunity to learn a little bit more information about the company or to experience what it's like to work with that company is on that sales call. And so it's not very scalable, it's not very leverageable. Where product-led growth is where you're letting the prospects experience your product or service before they're even forced to book a call to speak with you. And this is, like I've talked about earlier, infinitely more leverageable. We always want to do the more leverageable thing. That's how you really scale a business without having hundreds of employees. And so by having product-led growth, you're having the prospect be able to say, wow, I experienced this product from this company and I had a good experience from it. Let me now go work with them further to have an even better experience. That's what product-led growth is. And this was first really created by SaaS companies when they allow people to do free trials and they allow people to test their product out for 14 days or something like that. Or maybe there's a version of their product that's free, and then as they want more, they have to pay higher tiers. But majority of my clients and majority of people watching this video are going to be in like the service-based business space. So how do you use product-led growth? Well, there's a few different ways to do it. And one of the ways is through content. And content is really great because it's very scalable. I'm sitting here by myself creating this one video. I hope thousands of people get to watch it, right? And it's really great because it doesn't cost me any money. And so I can create this content, and my content is like a product. And so you're going to be watching this, and hopefully you've got some value out of one of these lessons inside of here, or at least you're like, wow, when I listen to Ravi, I learn more things or I make more money. And if you make that connection, then you might say, what if I worked with Ravi instead of just listening to Ravi? And so that might cause you to go below and book a call to speak with our team. And that's product-led growth, right? So it's a very subtle distinction, but it's very, very important. Another great example is in like low ticket products or in membership sites. So we launched our membership site called Scaling School. We have about 1,100 people in there paying us $97 a month right now. It's been very successful. We've been really happy with it. What I didn't realize was that in Q2 of this year, 38% of our high ticket sales came from people who first purchased Scaling School. 38% of our high ticket sales came from people who first purchased Scaling School. And then once they experienced Scaling School, they were like, wow, I've learned a lot. I've really scaled my business. Let me work with Ravi more one-on-one. And then they book a call to speak with our team there. And of course, those people show up the most, they close at the highest rate, and they pay the most amount of cash up front. And so it was a win-win for everyone. But what is the funniest part of that whole story was that we had launched Scaling School in Q2 at the beginning of Q2. And I was really afraid that if we launched it and then I had my appointment setters and my salespeople and I was blasting every single day trying to send people to buy from our high ticket, like, hey, this is good, but get our high ticket stuff, get our high ticket stuff, get our high ticket stuff all the time. I was afraid that it would affect our churn, that a lot of people would churn out of the subscription because they say, oh, all they want me to do is ascend to the high ticket. So the coolest part of that 38% was that was with zero marketing. I had nobody was hitting them up. Nobody was disguising client success calls that were actually sales calls. There was no onboarding process to convince them to buy my high ticket stuff. We weren't outbound messaging them. We weren't sending them email blasts. These were people who literally just bought the products, loved it, and then found a way to book a call with our sales team and bought our high ticket stuff later on. Okay, so understand how powerful that is. Now, in full transparency, once I saw that it was 38%, now I'm slowly implementing methods that could maybe massage that process to help it be a little bit more sales led to try to get that number closer to 50% or 60%. But still, it was a surprising statistic when I wasn't really doing any work. And the people that joined, the other great thing about it was the people that actually sent it into our high ticket. Those were the best clients because they already knew how we thought, and they already knew our methodology for things, and they already trusted us. And so they typically got better results. They ascended, they cross-sold, they referred people over there because they'd already been working with us previously in the membership side where it was just a product that I did almost no like day-to-day work in, right? So if you can focus on adding some elements of product-led growth in your business, because if you're not doing it, if every single time a prospect wants to learn a little bit more about you or experience your product or service, they have to buy your stuff or book a call to speak with your sales team, you will always lose out to the person that's letting them experience that product or service with no friction or with very little friction, like a low-ticket product. So this brings me perfectly into lesson number 9, which is your content is a product, so you should treat it as such. It's pretty funny. Most people think like, oh, because my content is free, I don't really need to spend too much time or energy on it, right? I see some of my clients' content when they first come to work with us when we're trying to scale their business, and it's like, it's pretty terrible, right? And I'm like, why is this look? And they're like, oh, well, it's just like my free stuff. And so like when they pay me, they'll get the really good stuff. It's really quality. And I'm like, no. You don't understand. Your prospects aren't making the association in your mind that you're making that, oh, this is my free stuff and this is my paid stuff. So my free stuff can be crappy. My paid stuff is good. They see it all as one product, right? They're seeing the entire thing as one product. So you should spend as much time on your free stuff, on your content, as you're spending on your paid stuff. And this was kind of a big realization to me. And that's why I went so heavy into YouTube the past few years, and why it's been really huge in driving our business is because, sure, I'm spending this time right now creating this really long form video, but I spent a lot of time writing out all these different lessons and condensing it down to make it as useful for you, because my hope is that you're like, wow, I like this person's content. I like this person's product. Let me buy more of their stuff. Or you share it with your friends and family. And I'm going to talk about sharing stuff later on. But don't underestimate the power that your content has on the perception of your brand to your prospects. Okay, because your prospects will say the content is shit, the product is shit, or the content is great, the product is great. Number 10, marketing without tracking is guessing. This is such an important point to drive home, because most people have no idea how they're generating clients. They're like, oh, I post these stories, I run these ads. Some people buy, some people don't, and that's where I'm at. And of course, they wonder why they can't scale. It's because you're not able to say, this is exactly what the person clicked on. This is the journey they went through. And this is the problems they had when they showed up on the call. And this is what we said. And this is what led to a close. And so what most people do is they have very little tracking. Well, I'd say most people have no tracking. And then some segment has like a little bit of tracking where they're like, okay, I know I spent this amount of money and I got this amount of clients, so I know that ads work. Or they have a little bit more of a in-depth tracking, but it's wholly inaccurate. They're managing it. They have some VA managing it. It's on these Google Sheets that have hundreds of different formulas, and they're all pulling into different Google Sheets in there. And so they don't even know at any point if the information is accurate or not. And what I've learned spending millions of dollars in ads and also building thousands of marketing systems is that I would argue that tracking is probably the most important element of marketing, the most important. And I don't say that lightly, but you have to ask yourself, like, if you are literally just doing activity every single day because you started this business and you started sending cold emails, and you know that when you send cold emails, you make money. You can keep on doing that thing and you could hire more and more people to send more and more cold emails every single day. But unless you actually understand what your rate of cold emails sent to open rate, to response rate, to booking rate, to qualified booking rate, to close rate, to time cycle from email sent to close, like if you don't have all those stats, how can you ever hope to actually scale your business? How can you reverse engineer your goals as a marketing department or as a company? For example, if you're going to say, I want to make $1 million this quarter, you need to be able to go literally back to how many emails that you're going to send every single day to get that $1 million. Most people, they're great at setting goals. They're fantastic at setting goals. I'm going to make $1 million. I want to make $1 million a month, $100,000 a month. But then they don't reverse engineer into actually figuring out, okay, what I need to do every single day, because they don't have the tracking systems in place. And a funny story to drive this home is we were running ads a little bit ago on this specific marketing campaign. And we didn't have our tracking really in place yet. We were one of our values is speed and experimentation. So like we had this new idea. We started running a lot of ads to it, a lot of ads being defined as about $60,000 a month in ads to it. And we ran it for an entire quarter. And our tracking wasn't super dialed on it. And so we ran it and we started seeing more booked calls. And I was like, wow, this is working. Let's spend more money. So at the end of the quarter, we spent about $180,000 in this specific type of campaign. Well, at the end of the quarter, I was like, okay, finally our tracking system's up in place. Let me try to go back and see how much this new marketing campaign helped us scale. And when I started looking at the numbers, I realized like, wait, these things aren't adding up. Like we're getting more calls, but it actually looks like calls are coming from this source here and this source here, not this marketing campaign over here. And we couldn't really come to a conclusion of whether this $180,000 I just spent was significantly contributing to the growth of the company. And so I said, well, the easiest thing to do is starting tomorrow, the beginning of this quarter, we're not spending $1 on this style of marketing campaign, not $1 on it. And so that happened. We spent $0 on it. And 60 days later, I looked back, and not only did we maintain the amount of sales and qualified calls that we had before, but it grew. We were getting more than we did previously when I had spent that $180,000. And the best part is that now I'm substantially more profitable as a company because I'm not laying out that $60,000 a month just going into a black hole. So even at the level that we're at with our tracking systems, sometimes we make mistakes. And in full transparency, $180,000 is still within our marketing budget. So I'm not upset at anybody. That's part of like how you play the game. But if I had had the tracking systems in place when we first started, I would have saved $180,000 in my budget. Marketing lesson number 11, create a marketing system backwards to forwards, optimize it forwards to backwards. When you're first building your marketing system, you shouldn't do it based off of the things that you can run the best ads for or the things that you can make the best content around. Instead, you should go to the people that are making you the most money, the people that are already buying from you. What are their pain points? What are their desires? Where do they find you? Why do they work with you, et cetera, et cetera? And then you should start to extrapolate that from, okay, our best clients are these types of people and they bought because of these reasons here. So let's make sure our calendar questions match that. And then we make sure that our messaging matches that, our top of funnel, our ads, we're targeting the right people all the way back to the top of the funnel. Most people do it the opposite. They actually start at the very front. They say, well, I can get a lot of attention if I run I hear this all the time, a make money online or a business to consumer offer. So this is what, every 2 ads that you see on YouTube or Instagram, it's like, hey, here's this crazy thing that you've never heard of to make money. And I'm not knocking anybody that does it. I'm just saying that most people, they like to start there because that market is huge. It is massive. The market of people that want to make more money that are currently working, let's say a 9 to 5, it's unbelievably huge, right? In the hundreds of millions of people in that. And so because people think, oh, well, because there's a huge market, it's very easy to run ads. Let me just run ads to those people. And then maybe we'll just create some kind of offer that helps them make more money. And they end up at the bottom of the funnel and try to close those deals. But I can't tell you how many clients of ours, they've come to us because they've been running this make money online business to consumer super wide market offer for years, and they want to switch it to like an offer like what we have. We're working with business owners, more qualified people, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, like literally dozens of people, we've totally re-engineered their business because they really hated working in that industry. But it's because they first started forwards to backwards, right? If they instead said, who is my ideal client? Who would I love to work with every single day? I would love to create content around. And then you work backwards to create the entire marketing system. They wouldn't have wasted, if it is wasted, that time doing going after people that they could just get the most attention from, whoever had the largest market. Now, the second part of this lesson is that once you have the marketing system in place, then you optimize it forwards to backwards, because even a marketing system that's the most optimized marketing system can always be optimized more. And so if you have, let's say you're taking, just for easy numbers, 10 sales calls a day, and you're able to tweak something so that you're able to close 5% higher. Well, that's not bad. Like, you work with your sales team, you get sales coaching, you buy the software, and you're closing at a 5% higher rate. Definitely going to make you more money. However, that being said, you're limited by how many people your sales team are speaking to on a day-to-day basis. Where if you took that same time, energy, effort, resources, and you put it over getting your click-through rate on your ads to go from 1% to 3%, you could arguably triple the entire business without doing anything else, right? And ironically enough, if you've seen the common theme of this whole video here, it's, in my experience, it's a lot easier to optimize marketing. So the forward to backwards, the ads, the targeting, the messaging, the video sales letter, the calendar questions. It's so much easier to optimize that because you don't need to train people and coach people and have them everything they get to do when you get to sales, right? I'm not saying you don't eventually want to do that with sales. I'm just saying that it's way easier for me to say, well, these ads have been performing at 1%. Maybe if instead of doing it, with this background, I did it with this background, I shot it by myself, I threw it up there, I could immediately get a 3% and triple the business by myself without talking to anybody, versus, okay, let's now increase our close rate by 5% and let's now go through, do daily huddles and blah, 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 blah to get that to happen, right? I hope that makes sense. So build the marketing system originally backwards to forwards to make sure that you're building a business and not a coffin, and then optimize it forwards to backwards so that you can get the most bang for your buck. Number 12, branding and direct response marketing can and must work together. For the longest time, there was 2 camps of people. There was the branding people, right? These are the people that live in New York. They're the Mad Men people. They drink their espressos and wear their nice suits, and they live in skyscrapers, and they say, oh, branding's the most important thing that you need. And we would never call people out like this, and we would never ask somebody to buy. They should just want to buy from our beautiful images of these exotic animals and this cologne, right? And then you have the direct response marketing world, which is that camp of people, which is the people that are like, those are the freaking internet marketers. These are the people that are in their basement making ClickFunnels and ads and trying to get that 1% increase in conversion rate to make more money. And they're doing ask. They're like, buy, right? And I make fun of both of those groups of people. I'm just joking if you're either one of those people, because I think both of them are excellent, which is the point of this, which is you need both, right? It was believed that you had to have them separated for the longest time. Either you were a brander or you were a direct response marketer. But in today's day and age, you can and have to be both of them at the same time. And I would say the biggest question that I even find myself asking is like, what is that perfect blend of branding and direct response, right? Because you do want branding, because branding is one of the most leverageable things you could ever do for your business, right? All things being equal, if you have a stronger brand than somebody else, everything else is equal. You have a stronger brand than somebody else, you're going to win that deal 10 times out of 10, right? So like you can't put a price on brand, which is also why branding is difficult to be able to quantify. So that's incredibly valuable. But at the same time, I don't want to be a content creator, or I don't want to just be providing value 24/7, 365 without actually trying to extract some of that value from the marketplace. That's one of the reasons why I launched that membership site, Scaling School, was because I wanted to extract, I'm creating this well, I shouldn't say unbelievable amount, but what I would consider to be a lot of value in the marketplace. I've had over 1,300 YouTube videos. I've spoken at dozens of events. I've hosted dozens of events myself with 300 plus people. So I felt like I was creating a lot of value in this marketplace, but I was only extracting out only the people that were working with me at one of the highest levels, which is a decent size investment. And so I was like, well, there's all this value I'm creating. What if I created this lower tier called Scaling School, this membership site, where people that are getting value could just work with me a little bit closer, and I could extract that value that I was creating, and it worked out well, right? We're doing over $100,000 a month in recurring income that I never had previously, simply by creating this membership site. So that's direct response. I'm pulling out of the marketplace some of the value that I'm creating, and I don't know the answer for how much is branding and how much is direct response. You're going to have to figure that out on your own. And it also depends on the sophistication of your market, which I'll talk about here in a moment. But you should understand that you need to be building both. And branding takes a long time to build. Anybody can launch a funnel and an ad and start generating leads, calls, and sales tomorrow. Branding takes a long time to build, and it's even more difficult to manage, right? Making sure that every single element of every content that you post, every ad that you run matches your brand guidelines. So you might as well get started on it right now. You might as well start focusing your time, energy, and effort on it right now. And so don't think either or when it comes to branding and marketing, thinking how can I combine them together to just destroy and obliterate my competition who thinks that they are just branding or who thinks that they are just direct response marketing. Marketing lesson number 13, make your first $1 million by yourself. This is more of like a business tip here, but I can't tell you how many clients or people that I speak to, they have like a 6 or 7 person team and they're doing like $20,000 a month. They're making $200,000 a year, $300,000 a year. You're just overhead walks on 2 legs. That's from a great book. I think it's called How to Get Rich. I forgot, by Felix, the founder of Maxim Magazine. But he says overhead walks on 2 legs, meaning the largest expense you will have in your company 8 times out of 10 is going to be labor, is going to be people that you're working with your company. So if you are making $20,000 a month and $30,000 a month and you have 4 employees, 5 employees, then you're never going to have enough money to reinvest back into marketing in order to grow that business further. And so, in full transparency, in Scaling with Systems, we hit our first $150,000 a month with me and 1 virtual assistant. Okay. Was I working insane hours? Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Would I go back and do it again that way? Absolutely not, because now I have enough money that I'm okay in the very beginning to be able to pay people to make my life easier and to not to give me a little bit more work-life harmony. But if you're watching this and you're just starting out and you're at $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a month and you have 5 employees, 6 employees, I guess put it this way. If for every $10,000 a month you make, you have 1 employee, I think you have too many employees, okay? Because either your pricing is off, your deliverables are off, something is weird inside of that, but you're just draining out all of the profit from the company. You're probably not even making that much money take home. You're draining out all of the profit of the company. And going back to what I'm saying this entire time over and over again, in today's day and age, marketing and everything is so leverageable that there's going to be a 1-person billion-dollar business in the next 15 to 20 years with AI. 1-person billion-dollar business. So ask yourself, do I think that I can make $100,000 a month or $83,000 a month, which would be $1 million a year roughly? Could I make that by myself? And the short answer is yes. Number 14, friction is a marketer's best friend and worst enemy. Friction, you're going to have a love-hate relationship with. Friction is the thing that prevents somebody from going all the way through your entire funnel. Let me give you some examples. So if you were to run an ad, and that ad was going to have a call button that goes directly to your personal cell phone, then you would have almost no friction in your marketing system, because anybody could literally just click on the ad, call you, and be speaking with you in 1 second. Okay, so that's no friction. That's an extreme of having no friction in your business, in your marketing system. And that's, at least you'd be getting a lot of calls every single day, but it's not very leverageable or very scalable. You spend $100 a day, you could have 50 calls in one day, and 49 of them probably are not qualified or interested even buying what you're buying. They just clicked one button, okay? So that's the extreme of no friction. On the other end, you have the extreme of a lot of friction. So this would be that someone clicks on an ad. From the ad, they go to an opt-in page. From the opt-in page, they go to a video sales letter page. From the video sales letter page, they fill out an application, and then your team reviews it and gets back to them. And then once your team reviews it and gets back to them, then they have to get on a first call and then make sure that they're qualified. And then they have to get on a second call, and on the second call, then they pitch the offer. But then once they pitch the offer, they have to make a custom proposal for that offer. So that's the other end of the extreme, where it's like an unbelievable, where you're going to lose 99.999% of people through that entire process by the time you get to the very end. And so what you want to do is you want to kind of use this little like friction knob, if you will, to play at where you're at in your business. So if you have no calls in your calendar, you're getting no leads, you want to make as little friction as humanly possible. So for example, it could just be an ad or an organic piece of content to a lead magnet, and you just get people's name, email, phone number, and then you're picking up the phone and calling those people. So that's really low friction. If you are having a lot of calls in your calendar and a lot of them are unqualified, then we want to turn up some of the friction, and we want to say, okay, maybe we just ask a question right at the beginning. We say, are you this person, yes or no? Another great example of this is I had a client and they were booking about 80 calls a day for their business, and 60 to 70 of them were totally unqualified. And so I said, look, you have all these salespeople. It's way too complex. Let's just ask in one of the questions, do you have this much money, yes or no, to invest, right? So we just said that straight up. Do you have this money to invest? All of a sudden, he went down to booking 20 calls a day, but then 19 out of 20 of them were qualified. So he could lower his team size, lower the amount of salespeople that he had. And sure, it doesn't look as good on a calendar to have 80 or 100 book calls every single day. But if you're still speaking to the same 20 people that are qualified, you might as well add that friction in there. So think of friction not like I need this or I don't need this. Think of it almost like a little bit of a knob. And in your business, you kind of have seasons. You got ups and you got downs. And so if you're in a season where you need more leads, calls, and sales, then maybe remove some of the friction of what you're doing. Or if you're in a season where you feel overburdened with the amount of leads and calls that you're getting in right now and you're just eking out sales, then maybe turn up some of the friction that you need. Real quick, if you're a coach, consultant, agency, course creator, or service provider, you acquire clients through a sales call, I'd highly suggest going below and booking a call to speak with our team, where we can build for you an end-to-end, totally custom, done for you marketing system in the next 7 days. So go down below if you're one of those people and you want to work with us more one-on-one, and you'll be able to see what that process looks like. Marketing lesson number 15. Every business should have a video sales letter, even if the majority of people don't watch it. This is kind of a principle that I've learned, which is that if you have a lot of contents, there will always be people who need more content to consume before they book the call, before they buy with you. So you can never really have too much content online. And most people are the opposite. They just have no content or no exposure with people before they book the call. They just have one hey, we help you do this, book a call to speak with you, and they have their calendar on there. And so I think at the very bare minimum, you should have a video sales letter. And really quickly, if you don't know what a video sales letter is, it's essentially you selling your product or service to somebody through video. That's as simple as it is. You're the best salesperson for the company. You have the most knowledge. You want the sale more than anybody else. And so you create a video that people watch before they actually book the call to speak with you or the sales team. And it kind of educates them. It entertains them. It pre-frames them. It explains to them what you do. It kind of shows social proof, your case studies and testimonials of results that you've gotten in the past, so that you have a higher chance of actually closing that person when they get on the sales call. And it's still so funny to me that this in this day and age, a lot of people still don't have something like that on their website, right? Even if only 1 out of 3 people watch it, I promise you it will lead you to more sales. And you can make a decent video sales letter in an hour of work. So in an hour of work, if you can have 1 out of 3 people be more qualified when they get on the call to speak with you, why would you not do that, right? So I think every single person should have some kind of form of a video sales letter at some point in their marketing system, in their marketing funnel, because it costs you virtually nothing. And in reality, it can only help you. Number 16, if you're still trying to convince someone that you're the best at what you do after they book the sales call, it's too late. Okay, people have already made the decision of whether they think you're good at what you do and whether they want to work with you by the time they've booked the sales call. The majority of people have. And so if you're trying to, as soon as they book the sales call, sending them hundreds of video testimonials and case studies and texting them over, things like that, between when they book the call and the 24 hours later that they have to get a call to speak with you, it's too late. You're going to overwhelm them and they're not going to show up to the call, right? And this is what I see majority of people doing out there. So instead, focus on doing that, convincing them that you're the best at what you do before they book that sales call. That way you can focus on the sales call, just specifically seeing if your product or service is a good fit for them and exactly what you would do if you did work with them. That's really should be what a sales call is for, handling objections and those things there. If you're trying to be like, we're the best in the world and we've worked with these people and we've worked with those people there, and you're doing it on the sales call, you're going to have a sales call cycle that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sales calls instead of doing all of that before they book the sales call. And then you're just spending that time on the sales call convincing them that you're the right person to buy from based on the objections that they have. Number 17, if you're still trying to explain to someone what you do after they book the sales call, it's too late. This also happens a lot in my industry where they're having to have sales calls that are an hour and a half, 2 hours, where they're scheduling 2, 3, 4 follow-up calls because they have people coming on the sales call and they're saying, yeah, I saw your ad or I saw a piece of content you have online, but what I don't actually know what it is that you guys do. And so now the salesperson's got to back it up. And then somehow in 1 hour, they're supposed to do discovery, figure out what their pain points are, pre-qualify them, and then tell them exactly what you guys do. And then also value stack and pitch them, and then also handle all the objections, and then also collect payment, and then also explain next steps. It's impossible to do in 60 minutes. So focus, once again, on doing that before they book the sales call. And the video sales letter is a perfect opportunity to do that because they're watching that right before they book the call. So in our dream world, our prospects are coming on the sales call and they're saying, hey, I know you guys do this thing here because I saw this in your content. I consumed it before I got in the call, but I just want to see how does it specifically apply to me and my business because I'm right here, okay? So much more custom and personalized. And our sales team says when people come to the call and they say, I want this that you guys sell, the call's a million times easier than they say, yeah, I've seen some of Ravi's content online or I've seen an ad and I just don't know what it is that you guys do. Well, then you're almost never going to make that sale. Number 18, understand your market's level of sophistication and act accordingly. This one's going to be a little bit of a doozy, but it's probably one of the most important marketing fundamental concepts that if you have any hope at actually scaling your business. And it might be the reason why you've been unable to scale your marketing efforts up until this point. So I'm going to draw this out to you. I didn't create this. This is by a marketing legend named Eugene Schwartz. So on this graph here, on the bottom here on the x-axis, you have the level of competition, so competition. And this is how competitive a marketplace is. So on the left-hand side, you have less competitive. On the right-hand side, you have more competitive. So a less competitive marketplace would be like Uber when they first launched. There's nobody else doing it. A very competitive marketplace now would be, I don't know, real estate, where every single person you know and their mother is a real estate agent, okay? And then on the y-axis right here, you have the level of sophistication. So I'll write sophistication, okay? And of course, it's the same thing, less down here, more over here. I'll draw this up, more over here, okay? And so what happens is over time, any marketplace, you will essentially see it going up and to the right. Meaning that any marketplace, when they first start out, it's not very competitive in a brand new industry or market. And so the buyer sophistication is very low, which I'll talk to you about what that means in a little bit here. But then what happens is a lot of people seeing that, wow, this is performing really well. This is doing awesome. This is a new market. We're going to pivot inside this market. We're going to sell inside this market. And so more competition enters. And eventually it becomes to the point that it's highly competitive and the prospects are highly sophisticated. And when I say sophisticated, I'm not talking about your prospects demographics are, polo players drinking tea and, talking about stocks. Sophistication is just how aware they are of the different offers in the marketplace and how much research they do before they buy from your stuff. And so Eugene Schwartz breaks this down into 5 levels. And I'm not going to go too deep inside this because I know this video is already long as it is, but essentially he breaks it up so that in the very beginning, you kind of have the birth of a marketplace, and this is where you can make any claim. So imagine at the very beginning of Uber, they say, hey, this is Uber. All you need to do is use your phone and you can get essentially a taxi anywhere you are in the world without having to hail one. They didn't need to do any marketing. They didn't need to say, we have the best branding in the world. Our drivers are these types of people. They're just saying, if you want a taxi anywhere in the world you are without having to hail one, click this button here. So that's a brand new offer. That's a brand new market. Nobody's ever heard that before. So it's very easy to get new people. It grew like wildfire, right? But then as more and more competition enters, then you have to increase your, you have to make bigger claims. So instead of Uber saying like, hey, get a taxi anywhere, it's like getting a taxi anywhere in less than 10 minutes. So for example, if you could use between Uber and let's say Lyft, and Lyft takes 30 minutes to get a Lyft, and Uber takes 10 minutes, then Uber could say our average person takes 10 minutes to get a ride. And so now they're having to compare themselves against their competitors a little bit and saying we're faster, right? And then eventually you get to the point that they have to add a unique mechanism, something new that separates them even more, because now Lyft is fixed it and now they're going, their average person is 10 minutes, gets a ride in 10 minutes. And so now Uber says, well, we have Uber Black. Right. So now you can not only ride, but you can ride in style. You can have that look that you so desire. Right. And so we have Uber Black. This other people don't have Uber Black. So they've introduced something new. And then eventually what happens is you just kind of go tick for tack. Someone offers something, someone copies it. Someone offers something new, someone copies it. Someone makes a bigger claim, someone makes an even bigger claim. You're going back and forth and back and forth until you reach this almost level 5 level of sophistication where the market is just so immune to claims. They're just so I get it. I know it. And now it's more on storytelling and branding, which is kind of what I've talked about a lot about earlier here, where, okay, well, if Uber and Lyft are the exact same thing, who do they want to associate themselves with? So I'll just tell you my personal experience. For me, I feel like Uber is a little bit more of a nicer brand than Lyft. That's just I'm not saying that is the case. That is just my own perception. And so I literally never use Lyft. I think that I use Lyft maybe 2 times in the last 10 years, where I use Uber every single day. I Uber every day. Okay. And so if they both do the exact same thing, essentially, they both have the same types of cars, et cetera, et cetera. Why do I use Uber over Lyft? Well, it's because I think Uber has a nicer brand. I like their layout more. It's almost, this is going to really piss people off. It's almost funny to me because when I hear someone that rides Lyft, it almost lowers my perception of them. I know this is insane. I'm going to get so much flack of this in the comments. I know. But it's it almost lowers my perception of that person, because I feel like Lyft is this cheaper thing. I don't know. But that is me saying that that is me aligning with Uber because of the brand. Okay. And that ties back to everything I'm saying here. So look at this graph, very poorly drawn graph. Look at where you are and decide, what are you doing the right thing based in your market? So this goes both ways. So you could be at the very beginning of a market. I talked about that, in the very beginning of this video, that portfolio company I had that went from $0 to $650,000 a month in 4 months. That was because we were in a brand new market. And so I was essentially coming in there with all of the experience that I have from working in markets that are on the right end of the spectrum, and I was able to just apply it in this brand new market, and we just exploded overnight. Okay, and that's why I took that company on, because I saw that opportunity inside of that. And so if you're in this stage 1 here, then don't worry so much about branding and having the best content and the best funnels and the best messaging. You could literally just say, hey, you've never seen this before. I do this thing. Come over here and you'll get a 50x return on your ad spend. On the other end of the spectrum, if you're closer on the right-hand side here, and your market's very sophisticated, they see ads on it every single time, there's hundreds of vendors that they could choose from, then ask yourself, if you're just running an ad that says, I'll get you this thing, guaranteed, or your money back, well, every one of your competitors is doing the exact same thing. So you need to focus more on storytelling, more on branding, more on content in order to convince people to come over to your side versus working with somebody else. That ties very nicely into marketing lesson number 19, which is the law of leadership. This is from a book called, I think it's the 23 Immutable Laws of Marketing. And the first law is the law of leadership. And essentially it means that it's better to be first than it is to be better. So remembering that chart that I showed you a second ago, if you were the first to enter a marketplace, even if you were a terrible business owner, you couldn't even read a P&L, if you had awful marketing and awful sales, you would still make money versus if you went to the other side of the spectrum. And that's because you're first in that marketplace. And this holds so true because I know people that I'm like, wow, I personally would consider myself maybe a little bit more of a savvy business person than this other person, but they make more money than me. Why is that? Because they are able to put themselves in a brand new market as first, or one of the first movers, second movers, et cetera, et cetera. And I know maybe they are more savvy than me because they were able to put themselves, but a lot of the times it was like they had a special skill set that allowed them to do that I didn't have that skill set previously, so et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying I'm better than the person, but you guys get the idea. So the law of leadership is that if you're first, it's better than being better. So if I was to be the first person to, let's say, I'm the first, we'll just use that Uber example, right? So Uber was the first person to do Uber, right? And they were the first person to create that app. And so that's why they have the majority of the market share. Lyft could come by and they could even be faster than Uber eventually. They could even have better cars than Uber eventually. But because Uber was first, they're still going to always have the majority of the market share. So this doesn't always apply. I'm not first in my market, and and that's okay. But just understand that the law of leadership does apply. But the law of leadership also applies. You don't have to be the first in a market. It applies to everything. So a great example of this could be a style of content or an aspect of your offer. So I'll give you an example personally. About 3.5 years ago, when I first launched my company, Scaling with Systems, my second company, but Scaling with Systems, I was helping people scale their businesses by doing cold email. And the way that we were doing it was I was helping people scale with virtual assistants. So I would train an overseas virtual assistant for $3 an hour, and I would train them on how to send 500 personalized cold emails every single day for my clients. And so when a client works with me, I would write their messaging, and then I would have this virtual assistant that they would pay. I would train them and place them in their business. And so the second day they were with us, they were getting 500 emails sent out every day. And then those would lead to so many calls, sales, et cetera, et cetera. And we just destroyed the industry when we did that. People were talking about cold email. Everyone was like, oh yeah, you should do cold email. I'm going to show you how to do cold email. I was the first person to say, I'm going to train somebody and put them in your company to do cold email for you. And we were getting $15 to $20 qualified book calls. I mean, the amount of units that we were selling a month and our ROAS, it exploded overnight. I have actually never seen the same amount of growth in that one time frame that I did when I first did that. Now, we no longer do that because I see the market shifting, et cetera, but that's a great example of me capturing that law of leadership first. So you don't have to create a patented technology in order to do it. You just have to figure out what is something that I could do that's different than everybody else. And another example would be like in content. So there's a lot of different styles of content out there, but there's some people that create new versions of content. For example, like sometimes I see in my reels like animated content where it's like a black background and there's like a voiceover and they're talking. And I know a few of the guys that started that on Instagram Reels, and they exploded overnight. And it's not because they were saying information that was like so much better than other people saying the same information. It was because it was unique. It was different. They were the first person, at least in that market, to do it through animations. And so they exploded overnight. So look at the law of leadership in every single thing you do, from how you create your content to what your funnel looks like, to how you interact with your prospects, to how you create your offer, and figure out how can I be the first, because the first is always better than better. Number 20, make sure your offer passes the corner store test. The corner store test is where you can walk up to your local corner store and they say, hey, nice to meet you. I've seen you around here a few times. What is it that you do? And you say, oh, I do XYZ. And the person that works at the corner store is going to say, that makes a lot of sense. They're not going to say, oh, cool. Like they have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Because if the person that works at the corner store can understand what you're doing in 3 seconds while you're buying a Hershey's bar, then all of your marketing efforts and your sales and all of that energy is going to be way easier, because your prospects are going to be able to understand it in the 3 seconds when they see your ad, they land on your sales page, or when they book a call. And I can't tell you how many clients that I've personally acquired because I at my sauna, at my gym, because people say, oh, what is it you do? And I say, I do this thing. And they're like, oh, I need that. Let's book a call to speak, right? And what I used to say is, oh, what do you do? And I'd say, oh, I build custom end-to-end marketing systems for other companies, and we launch it within 7 days. It's typically paid ads, some form of organic, like blending direct response and branding, and then we optimize our sales process so they can close more deals, right? If I say that, someone's like, oh, okay, that's cool, dude. Like, that wasn't just being nice, right? Now when someone's like, hey, what does you do? I was like, I help my clients get more customers. That's what I say. I book more sales calls for my clients. That's all I say. Because most of the time it's a surface level thing, but the point of this whole lesson is that if you can boil it down to the main thing that you do in 3 to 5 words, it becomes so much easier to create full marketing campaigns around this and to capture the attention of a larger market versus if you just spoke super sophisticated because you thought you were being smart and alienated the majority of people. Number 21, there is no award for second cheapest. So either be the absolute cheapest in your marketplace, or don't compete on price. Those are the two options, okay? And this is really prevalent when I see like membership sites and communities. So I'll give you a great example. I price my membership site at $97 a month. And a lot of people, when I was first looking at membership sites, they're like, oh, that's too much. You need to do $30 a month or $40 a month or $50 a month. And I just was like, well, there's literally nothing preventing somebody when you're dealing with like membership sites, like content. There's literally nothing stopping someone from charging $1 a month. Not anything. Someone could easily just do the exact same thing and charge one. And there are people out there charging $1 a month. So then if I'm not going to compete, if I'm never going to be $1 a month, then I might as well price it at a price point that I know works for me. And then just focus on building a really great product, okay? And the same thing happened with my girlfriend when she launched her membership site, right? She was like trying to keep it as cheap as humanly possible, and I told her the same thing. I'm like, baby, it's not going to make a difference. Just make it the price point that you want to make it, and then focus on the product. And she did, and now she's taking home 3 times as much money as the amount that she originally came to me with. And another thing that drives us home is that we run low ticket funnels all the time. So low ticket is like kind of that product like growth. Someone buys something from us in a funnel for like $37, $97, and the hope is that they then buy some of our stuff later on. And we ran a marketing test, which this is Inside Scaling School, the results of this test. And we tested selling this product for $7 versus $37. And what we learned was that we actually had a higher sales conversion rate at $37 than we did $7. Everything else was the exact same. We literally just changed the price point, and we had a higher conversion rate on the 37 than the 7. And more important than that, the 37 had a higher average order value, which is a fancy way of saying we were making more per person on the 37 than the 7, which is obvious. So just understand that the solution is not always to go cheaper, okay? And so unless you're going to be the absolute cheapest, then don't even think about price. Marketing lesson number 22, one short and one long. This is a saying that I tell a lot of my clients, but it's my philosophy for whenever you're starting to create content online. I think you should have one short form platform and one long form platform. And it kind of goes back to what I talked about earlier with Google's 7-11-4 rule and people doing research with you online. You know, having just one platform is fine. And I know a lot of people that do that, and that's definitely better than just running ads or just doing cold emails. There's no doubt about it. But I think there's huge benefits in short form platforms and huge benefits in long form platforms, and no platform has both. So for example, I like short form content because it's a really great way to get eyeballs on me and my brand and my messaging. So we could create a reel or an Instagram post and it could get tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of views within 24 or 48 hours, okay? Now, if you make a long form YouTube video, unless you're hitting the 1% of 1% of the algorithm, it's very unlikely you're going to get 100,000 views in 24 or 48 hours. And ultimately, if you're just looking to have more people know who you are, then views are the same across each of them. Now, they're not the same, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But the point being that the short form has a great place in just bringing more people top of funnel to know who you are. And then long form, like it's very difficult to convert someone short form. They see 1 60-second video and they go, oh my God, this guy's amazing. This girl's amazing. Let me buy their stuff right away. No, they're going to either watch multiple reels, they're going to click a link in your bio, talk with you in your DMs, or they're going to go find you on a different platform and they're going to watch your long form content. And these platforms are so smart now where I find myself, I will be looking at someone on a short form platform. And then next time I'm on a long form platform like YouTube, that person's content, which has never showed up previously, all of a sudden is showing up. Okay. So they kind of speak to each other in ways that I'm not going to really get into here, but The point being that then the person goes from short form and then they consume on a different platform your longer form stuff, your 20-minute videos, your 30-minute videos, your 60-minute videos, your 70-minute videos, and all else being equal, understand the formula is the more exposure someone has to you, the more trust the more trust they have for you. The more trust they have for you, the more likely they're going to buy what you're selling. Okay, so more exposure equals more trust is the simplest formula I can give you for really what content creation and marketing is. So if I can get people to consume a higher watch time of my content, then I'm going to have more buyers in the end. So focus on having one short form, and short form for me is like Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, something like that, and one long form, which to me the best one is YouTube. I'm not a huge fan of podcasts because it's very difficult to organically grow on podcasts. So for me, the beautiful dynamic duo is like Instagram or LinkedIn and YouTube. Number 23, your cost to acquire a customer includes all advertising spend, software, and labor. This is something that I even struggled with previously because I used to be like, oh, our cost to acquire a customer according to Facebook ads is this amount of money here. But I wasn't including, the cost of all the software we have for creating the ad creatives and stuff like that. I wasn't including my media team budget in there to create the content and edit the videos. I wasn't including my marketing team's labor inside of there. I wasn't including my setters, my salespeople, my sales team leader. And so really your cost to acquire a customer could probably double if you actually added all of that stuff in there. And so it's really great for you to say, oh, my cost to acquire a customer is this low when you're talking to your friends or you're bragging online, but it's not really good if you're breaking down your P&L and you're trying to figure out, okay, for me to make money, how much does it cost me? That's essentially what you're saying. Like, so for me to make $10,000, how much does it cost me? And so if you're saying that it costs me $1,000 to make $10,000, that's really great. But if you're not including your sales commission, setters, all that other stuff, then you're not really making $10,000. And so what you really need to say is, okay, ads, it costs me $1,000, but then I have another $1,000 in commissions. I have another $500 in software, and I have another $1,000 in media and marketing labor, right? And so now you're really at, let's say, $2,500 or $3,000 to make $10,000. And that makes a big difference, especially for a lot of people that are running at like a 1.5x to a 2.5x return on ad spend. They might be thinking that they're making all this money, but when you really break it down, you could be coming out break even or even losing some money. Number 24, the name of the game is to move as many people as possible from paid and earned audiences into owned audiences, okay? So if I were to draw this out for you, paid and earned audiences, so a paid audience would be stuff like running Facebook ads, YouTube ads. It could be stuff like, I don't know, a billboard if you're in 2001, billboard, right? That's paid. So people are seeing you and they're knowing who you are. And earned is stuff like this could be Instagram, this could be YouTube, this could be Facebook, it could be a group, could be school. These are all platforms where you're earning that person's attention based on the work that you're doing. And what you eventually want to get to is owned. And owned is where you're taking all these people from these different platforms and you're putting them in your CRM or you're putting them on an email list, preferably both, okay? And this is important because paid platforms come and go, earned platforms come to go, algorithms change, you might get banned or canceled or whatever else it is, but nobody can take away an email list. Nobody can take away your email list. So you need to, it's so funny, I'll tell this funny story. I was, a few years ago, I was returning a lease I had on a car. And this guy was walking around and we just got to talking as he was inspecting the car. In full transparency, I was actually trying to distract him by talking to him so that he didn't notice any dings or nicks on the car, which it worked. I didn't get anything. I got the full price back. And so I was like talking to him as he was inspecting it. And we're getting into business and content because he was like saw the house I was living at. And I told him what I did, and he's like, I used to have a YouTube channel with my girlfriend. We had 4 million subscribers on my YouTube channel. And I was like, dude, that's insane. That's awesome. He's like, yeah, it was cool, but then her and I broke up. And so the channel kind of just faltered and fell apart at that point. And he's like, yeah, so then I had to get a job. And so now I'm checking cars. And I was like, wow, if that's not a lesson for moving people from earned into owned, I don't know what is, right? And I'm not knocking people that check cars for a living. I feel like I have to be so politically correct today, but the point being that I'm saying that I bet you this person, if he could go back again, which is actually what he said when I brought it up, he wished that he had somehow captured those people's information and had lead magnets, or even just said, join my newsletter, whatever else it is, so that if a day did come when he was no longer doing it, he could easily just send a blast out to every single person that had ever been watching his videos and say, hey, unfortunately we just broke up, but that being said, I'm launching my new channel over here while I do this. And sure, out of, let's say, 4 million people, is everyone going to go over? No, but what if you had 1 million people go over, you started your brand new channel with 1 million people? Probably be pretty great, right? So think as much as possible, like, how do I extract the contact information of the people from paid channels and earned channels into own channels, so that then if you have an email list of 10,000 people, you will never ever go hungry. You will always be able to sell to those people. And so I think that the owned asset is one of the most valuable things in a marketer's arsenal. Number 25, segment as much as possible, but not too much. The majority of businesses that I see doing, let's say, email marketing or having their appointment centers pick up and call people, et cetera, they're treating every single lead the same. They don't have the qualifiers that we talked about earlier. They don't have some kind of scoring system. And they're just like, okay, this person gave us their name, email, phone number. Let's blast them with the same thing we blast everybody else with. And segmentation is where you're starting to look at people's behavior and you're saying, okay, these people are probably further along the journey than these other people. And so I need to treat them differently. And a few great examples of this would be in email lists, like email marketing. So if somebody has never booked a call to speak with you, then you should probably be sending them different messages from people who have already spoken to you, right? People that have already spoken to you, you might not want to just say, book a call, speak with us. Like, I've already spoken with you. It wasn't the right fit. And so instead, you really want to be sending 2 different messages. So it could be like, these people you're trying to convince them why they should book a call, and these people you're trying to convince them why they need to re-engage with your company again. So 2 totally different market segments. Another example would be for us, I've talked about it a few times, but we don't work with anybody one-on-one that's between $0 and $5,000 a month. And so previously, we just excluded them from all of our email lists. But then once I launched that Scaling School, our membership site, I told our marketing director, I said, why don't we just email those people every single day something from Scaling School and try to get people to join Scaling School. So this is a previous segment that we literally just didn't even talk to or do anything with. Now that it's generating us recurring revenue every month because we're sending them emails, and it doesn't affect the other people who we want to work with us one-on-one because we're segmenting them, we're sending them different emails, right? Another really great example, I'll actually draw this out here, is in your appointment setting process. So I can't tell you how many times I work with a client, they have appointment setters, and I'm like, cool, what's your appointment setter processing look like? And they're like, okay, new lead comes in, they call them, and then they text them, and then they call them every single day for 5 days. And then after that, they just go back to the database and they power dial every single person that's in the database. I'm like, okay, well, that's definitely better than not doing anything. But what if you could maybe segment the list a little bit more? So let me just walk through what our segmentation is for our business. So for our appointment setters, they have multiple stages or smart views that they're able to look at different leads in. So one smart view is going to be discovery offered, right? So these are people that we've offered a discovery to. Another one is going to be responded. So these are people that we're actively conversating with. They've messaged us back and we're going back and forth. These are people that are unresponsive, but 72-hour engagement. So these are people that have literally not messaged us back, but because of the tracking systems we have, we know that they are visiting our websites, going to our sales funnels, consuming our lead magnets. And then you have unresponsive. So these are people that have opted in, and we have their contact information, but they've never responded back to anything that we've ever said. And so every single day when my appointment setters start their dials, they start their outbound, they go from bottom to top. And so sometimes they might not even hit this list of people that have never talked to us because they're so busy engaging with the people that have already shown somewhat interest. So I'm not saying don't ever hit that unresponsive list, because that's always going to be the 90% of people that opt in that are never going to communicate with you. But if you could just start your engagements with these ones here who have at least shown some kind of interest in working with you, you'll have way higher throughput on your entire marketing system. And the second part of this lesson, which is don't segment too much, is just be careful, because I've also gone so far deep to said like, these people are discovery offer. These people have responded back to a text message in the last 24 hours. These people have responded back to a text message in the last 72 hours. These people are unresponsive but have visited our booking page at one point. These people are unresponsive but have visited some other page on the booking. These people are totally unresponsive. I've like broken it down so far in there that it was like just super cumbersome trying to navigate that whole thing. And it's the same thing with emails. Sure, you could send an email blast to people that have visited the booking page versus people that have never visited the booking page, and you could do different ones, but it's kind of, they're still having probably the same problem that prevented them from booking when they visit the booking page as somebody who's never visited the booking page. So just be careful. I see some people taking some of this stuff to the extreme, and remember that when you do that, too much segmentation, the juice isn't worth the squeeze at that point. Marketing lesson number 26, marketing and sales should have a weekly meeting cadence. It's kind of funny to me. There's like literally memes online how you have like marketing clashing off versus sales. And it's always like the Spider-Man thing where it's like marketing and then sales and then the CEO and everyone's pointing fingers at each other. And it's like all this conflict that goes on into what is two of arguably the most important departments inside of your company. And instead, you should focus on creating a collaborative environment where marketing and sales are like Batman and Robin. That's what it should be. It shouldn't be like Batman and the Iceman. It should be like, or Mr. Freeze, I guess. It should be like Batman and Robin, where they're seeing like, okay, oh, cool, these people are the most qualified. These people came from this email blast that I did. So what if I actually do the same heading for this email blast as all the other email blasts? And, these people are closing the most. Well, they actually came from this traffic source. So what if we did more around this traffic source? And they're going back and forth because everyone's there for the exact same thing, which is to close more deals. And so instead of doing the finger pointing thing, you define what qualified is, right? That was one of the first lessons I gave you. And then we are working together every single week to be able to identify what's working, what's not working, and doing more of what's working and less of what's not working, right? And this is really, really beneficial also because marketing, it's very easy for marketing to change things. Like goes back to a lot of the stuff I've been talking about before, where a one-person marketing company could run a 10-person sales team. And so marketing, they don't have to talk to anybody. They could just change a headline somewhere, change the VSL, and all of a sudden sales is like getting on calls and people are referencing this thing that they have no idea. And sales is like, yo, in Slack, marketing, what's going on? What? Oh yeah, we did this blast and I said that we're doing this insane thing. So yeah, just make sure you say it on sale. And they're like, oh, well, thanks for letting me know. So it's nice to have some kind of cadence weekly, 2 times a week, depends on the size of your team, where your full marketing department, your full sales department's on a meeting together. There's an agenda. And for us, we have literally one specific segment of that meeting that's called sales feedback. There's no, they just say, they just word vomit. Like, this has been great, this has not been great, blah, blah, blah. And marketing is just taking all of it, writing it down, and then we action it as a marketing department, separate from sales, but with sales feedback. Number 27, break your company goals down to the smallest measurable daily inputs. I referenced this slightly a little bit earlier when I talked about number of cold emails you need to send a day, but it always shocks me whenever I talk to somebody about their goals in their business and they say, I want to make, we'll use the same example, $1 million this quarter. And I say, great, how many dials do you need to make? Or how much money do you need to spend on ads? How many outbound cold emails do you have to send? How many pieces of content do you need to create? And they're like, oh, I don't actually know. And it's like, okay, well then how can you have any hope of actually achieving that goal? And so we break all of our goals for our company, whether they're revenue goals, whatever else it is, down into what do we need to be doing daily. So for example, at our company, I know how many leads we need to be generating every single day to hit our revenue goals. And so if I notice that in our dashboards, we're below that number, which the dashboard shows the number we need to be at and the number that we're at, I might need to scramble and come up with a lead magnet real quick and do an email blast or create a YouTube video, or do something that gets those people to book a call or to become a lead of ours, because I need to hit that number. But if I didn't have that daily number, like I know I need this many leads a day, then it'd be very easy for me to wait a week or a month, and then when I check on the goal, I'm like, well, we're nowhere near that, right? And another really great example of this is, I had never done this before, but a few quarters ago, for the first time ever, when I broke down how much money we needed to spend to make this goal, to hit this revenue goal, I actually gave my marketing department a minimum amount of ad spend that they had to spend every day. A minimum. Most people are like, oh, don't spend too much, or, oh yeah, careful, don't spend this amount of money. But this is the minimum they have to spend daily, not maximum, minimum. And so I said, you have to spend this money. I need to see this money leave my bank account every single day. Right? And they go, oh, well, what if the campaign's not profitable? I'm like, well, you better start working on profitable campaigns. What if the ads fatigue? Well, you better have new ads ready to go by the time this one fatigues, so that you can just re-switch those out. because I know that in order to hit our goals, I have to spend this amount of money this quarter, which breaks down to this amount of money every month and this amount of money every single day. And so you're going to prevent us from reaching those goals because you're not doing your job correctly. So the minimum amount of money spending every day, that's not just spending the money and you can just close your eyes and you're like, oh, well, he just spend $5,000 a day, so I'm just going to spend no matter what. Obviously, there's other KPIs like a return on ad spend, cost per lead, click-through rate, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the thing. Most people get so bogged down with, oh, I need my cost per lead or my click-through rate. Let's say I need my cost per lead to be $10. Oh, it's $20. So, we only spent $100 this month instead of, $1,000. It's like, well, why didn't you work to make the cost per lead go down so that you could spend more money? Right? Oh, well, it's because I thought that we were optimizing for cost per lead. No. We're optimizing for spending this amount of money a day, and you have to do it at this cost per lead. So very subtle difference, but break down what the daily inputs you need to do for each department in order to hit your goals. And then as a CEO of your company, look at it every day. So I have another video on my YouTube talking about like tracking these numbers exploded my business. But if you actually look as a CEO of your company, first thing you do every morning, you look at your dashboard and you have where you're at and then what the goal you're trying to hit of the daily input. You're able to, I kind of call it being a free agent. You're able to be a free agent in your company. So for example, let's say in that specific quarter, I'm spending a lot of time in client success, but I noticed that 2 days in a row, we are below our average lead per day goal for the company. Well, then I might take a break from client success, hop over to marketing and spend 1 week. What's going on? What do we need to do here? I need to create some videos. We need to do ads, getting us back to the point because I got to make up the deficit that we had the previous few days in the leads so that we're now above it and then we can average back out after that. So breaking it down to the smallest daily input will just make any unbelievable, crazy goal that you want to hit very, very doable. Number 28, quality is the ultimate form of leverage. I was speaking to a friend the other day and he actually said this to me because I was like, hey, we're posting. I have, 3 times a day on Instagram, once a day on LinkedIn, twice a week on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. And I'm trying to get to this new lead goal. And so I can't post more content. Like, what do I do? I need to get this new lead goal. How do I get this new lead goal from my organic content? And he's like, dude, you've already maxed out quantity. Like you and I both know, according to the algorithms, you can't post more than what you're doing right now. And so you need to focus on quality. Quality is the ultimate form of leverage because, you're like, for me right now, my average reel reaches about 5,000 people in the first 24 hours. Okay. And he's like, what if it reached 15,000 people on average in the first 24 hours? And it's so simple. And I know I'm going to say this and you're like, duh, but it kind of hit me where I was like, wow, you're kind of right. It's like, I'm so focused on quantity all the time, like doing more, which I think solves the majority of your business, your problems. But once you do get to at least somewhere near that maximum quantity that you can do, because there is a point of diminishing returns in almost every single thing, then shift your focus on quality. Because if you can have, going back to what I talked about earlier, if you're testing ads every single week and your average ad has a 1% click-through rate and you test a new one that has a little bit better quality, something like that, and it has a 2% click-through rate, you could double your business, right? And so I'm going to be focusing a little bit more. Now, quality doesn't necessarily mean I have to have like panoramic B-roll shots of me on a yacht in Monaco and all this stuff here. I just mean that the quality of the content that I'm creating in general needs to be more polished, more refined. And that hopefully will lead us to having more leads, calls, and sales. And remember, it's leverage. So just by doing this one thing, like maybe getting a better setup, a better background, speaking more efficiently, whatever it's going to be, just by doing those few things there one time, it could have a massive exponential output on what we generate from our content. Number 29, the best client success system is a great marketing system. What this means is that you could have the most amazing client success process and everything is dialed and you have like all these people talking to them and helping them and done for you work and all this stuff here. But if you are simply working with the wrong people, then it doesn't matter how amazing all that stuff is. It's all for naught. And that's why when we're dealing with a client and they have a lot of, let's say, client success or client fulfillment issues, one of the first things that we do is look at, have they defined what a qualified lead is and qualified client is, and are they only closing those types of people? Because, for example, I was hosting a mastermind the other day, and I was walking through how we now get our average client marketing campaign up and launched in 7 days. And this lady raised her hand and she's like, well, yeah, I guess you have to assume that everybody here already has a business with an offer. And I'm like, exactly. I am assuming that, right? Because if somebody comes in and they're like, yeah, I'm thinking about launching a business. Well, we're not going to be able to launch this campaign in 7 days. There's no way in hell that's going to happen. And so even though the larger market is going to be people that are like maybe just starting out 0 to 5K and they want to launch a business, for us to be able to launch a full end-to-end custom marketing system in 7 days, they already need to come in having some stuff, right? And so that's why we only close people that come in having those things. So if you're worried about, oh, I'm not seeing client results, it could be your client success system, but a lot of times it could be that you're marketing, attracting, and selling the wrong people. Number 30, the number of views don't matter as much as who is viewing. I had a one-on-one call the other day with somebody, and I don't do one-on-one calls. I don't sell them, but this came as a referral from one of my closest friends. He said, hey, this guy wants to hop on a call with you. Just charge him your hourly rate. And so my hourly rate is $5,000 an hour, which I know a lot of people here is like, oh my God, that's insane. But that's what based on how much money I make, et cetera, that's what I value my hourly rate to be. So I charge this person $5,000 for an hour. And at first he was like, oh my God, $5,000, but he bought it, right? And so then we got on a call together. And at one point we got around to my content, and he's like, I'll be honest with you, dude. Like, I see your content out there, and I get like 10 to 20 times the amount of views that you do. So why should I listen to like content, coaching, or feedback from you? And I said, well, how did you find me? And he's like, oh, well, I watched like 15 of your YouTube videos, and then I realized that you didn't do one-on-ones, and so I reached out to my buddy who I know you know, and he connected us together, and I paid the $5,000. And like before I said anything, he's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. It worked for me. I'm your ideal avatar. And for context, this guy was doing around $400,000 a month in his business. And so this is to drive the point home that I'm not going for trying to get hundreds of thousands or millions of views. If I can get hundreds of thousands or millions of views and still speak to exactly who my target market is, then fantastic. That is the best of both worlds, but I haven't figured out a way to do that yet, okay? So I'd rather get less views, but have it be my ideal client avatar than get a lot of views just for posturing's sake, and the majority of them not be for my client avatar. And I have a separate video on my YouTube where I go more in depth on this called The Content Prism. So I recommend you checking that out. And also Alex Hormozi came out with a video, and he also broke down that for like the past year, he'd been creating all this content around his diet and his relationships, because everybody had told him, hey, if you make this top of funnel content, you get all these views, eventually the most qualified people are going to, come down and buy from you. And he said that wasn't the case. And he said for him, the realization came because he was at dinner with somebody or speaking with someone, and they said that, and they said like, he was like, yeah, I'm not really your ideal avatar. And Alex Hormozi's like, what are you talking about? You are my ideal avatar. And the guy's like, oh, well, I saw your content. You talk about this stuff here. And like, that's not me. I'm a business owner. I do $5 million a year. Something around, I'm paraphrasing that story. And Alex Hormozi was like, oh my God, that's a problem right there, because you're my dream client and I'm scaring you away because I'm creating this content around this other stuff there. And so he flipped the switch immediately and started going into in-depth business content. And in full transparency, that's the exact same thing for me. I used to watch a lot of Alex's contents back in the day, but I hadn't watched a video of his in probably 1.5 to 2 years, because he started talking about his diet and his fitness routine and his personal relationships. And I'm not knocking that at all. The dude crushes it in all of those areas. I'm just saying that, okay, well, that wasn't what I was coming to him for. And so I didn't want help with any of that. I wanted help like on the business side. And I stopped watching his video. Now, guess what? He's back posting video content. I'm back watching videos around the business content. And what I found, this is really interesting, is that his percentage of views to subscriber ratio is the same of my views to subscriber ratio when I talk about business stuff. So this is mostly speaking to people that are like maybe a little bit more niche down, and you're servicing like if you imagine there's 7 billion people in the world, the percentage of people that are your ideal avatar, it's going to be like a small percentage of a small percentage of a small percentage of a small percentage. And there's always going to be more people that are not your ideal avatar than those that are your ideal avatar, okay? So if you're trying to get the most views and you're like, oh, I want this video to get hundreds of thousands of views, but your market doesn't have hundreds of thousands of people in it, then you're probably getting a bunch of people that aren't in your market to watch your content. And I can't tell you how many times I will get hit up in my Instagram DMs, or like I'm at an event and I talk to somebody, and these are really qualified people, and a lot of them end up becoming our clients. These are like famous people. I'm talking about, if I said their names, you would know who they are. And they're like, dude, I've been watching your content for so long now. And I'm like, what? You're watching my content? Like, I was so shocked by it. and maybe I'm hyping myself up a little bit here, but I'm trying to hype you up in the sense that like, it doesn't matter if your stuff gets tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of views. If you have the right people watching it, that's all that matters. Marketing lesson number 31, packaging is everything. It's funny, I was watching a video the other day and somebody said that content isn't about content is about packaging. Because you could take this same piece of content and you could just have a different thumbnail, a different title, and a different hook, and it would perform considerably worse, right? Or considerably better depending on how you're looking at it. And so what you need to pay attention to is how you're packaging that piece of content. And a great example of this is someone on my marketing team recently, he was posting something for me on Instagram. And so he was showing me what he was posting and he wrote it out and I looked at it and I said, okay, this is probably like a 5 out of 10. But the reason it's a 5 out of 10 is not because you're not giving away the right lead magnet or you're not selling the right thing. It's because it's not exciting to that person. And so I just changed some of the messaging around. I packaged it a little bit better. And it was the first post that he made for me instead of me making it. And it did better than all my previous last 7 posts, okay? And it was because we changed the wording around so that he wasn't, first of all, he was adding curiosity, he was adding pain, he was adding desire, he was painting this picture. It was the exact same lead magnet. They were all getting the same thing in the very end, but what we did is we just worked on the messaging around what that lead magnet was. And also instead of saying this lead magnet was, hey, here's this training, we say like, hey, here's this worksheet that has all these things and it comes along with this never before seen 45-minute training. And so just by literally changing, I probably changed 10% of the words in his entire caption. It exploded overnight because we packaged it to be way sexier to the marketplace. So your job as a marketer is not to create content, it is to package content so that it's appealing. And so if you are, maybe you're an agency or you're a content creator, you're working for the people, you say, Ravi, I can't make the IRS sexy. I can't make auditing sexy. I can't make financial services sexy. You absolutely can. You just have to learn how to package it so that it is sexy. Number 32, secret shop at least once a quarter. I used to work at a grocery store chain in the United States called Publix. And I was a bagger there, then I was a cashier there. And one of the things that I took from them that I do in my business now is that at least once a month, they would have what they call the secret shopper, which is they would pay pretty much a total stranger to come into the store and go through an entire buying experience, but they would document everything that they went through and then report back to management what the experience was like. And I knew this because whenever the secret shopper was gone, then the management would pull us all in for a meeting and we'd review everything that the secret shopper went through, the experience, what was good, what was bad, et cetera, et cetera. And then we'd work to optimize it so the next time the secret shopper came through, we'd get a better score than last time. And so I do that same thing in our company now as well. We do it once a quarter where our marketing team will take somebody who is not a current client of ours, but they have to be our ideal avatar, and we'll put them through our entire journey from end to end. Everything from watching our content, video sales letter funnel, email sequences, speaking with a setter, speaking with a salesperson, buying our stuff, going through the client test process. And nobody in the company has any idea other than the marketing director and me that this person is not who they say they are, that they're kind of working for us. And then at the end of the experience, they submit a Google Doc to us with all the things they liked, they didn't like, what they would change. And this has probably been one of the most valuable things I've ever done in my entire business because it's real feedback. And the benefit to that person is that they get to go through our entire client success process without paying anything. And the benefit to us is that, sure, I don't make money from this client, but I get so much insight that will allow us to make so much more money later on. So we literally have a recurring task around it in our project management software, but I'd recommend creating one for your company and doing it at least once a quarter. And the most important parts is that they are your ideal avatar. So don't just have your mom do it if she's not your ideal avatar. And the second important part is that nobody knows about it or the least amount of people know about it possible. Number 33, don't host a podcast, get on other people's. This is definitely going to piss off some people in the audience, specifically people that tell other people to create their own podcast. But if you just look at the numbers, podcast is not a great way to grow an audience. It is a great way to nurture an audience, okay? It goes back to that short form and long form thing I was talking about earlier. But even podcasts, in my opinion, are a poor version of long form content because, for example, YouTube, which I think is a great form of long form content, YouTube will promote your videos to other people that have never heard you before. The number one and two ways that people find new podcasts is going to be from a podcast they're listening to referencing your podcast, or from a friend or a family or coworker referencing your podcast. So it's much more difficult to get new listeners to your podcast than it would be to get somebody, a new viewer, to get to your YouTube channel. So with all things being equal, why not just create YouTube videos that are kind of like podcasts, long form videos, and you can have the algorithms or whatever other long form content you choose push your content to people that have never heard of you before. And just so we're clear, I had a podcast as well. But then what I realized when I was hosting my podcast is that a lot of these people that I was interviewing, they were literally just using me for my podcast audience. And sure, I was using them for their audience as well, but it became this very transactional relationship, and I just didn't really like it, to be honest with you. And so I shut my podcast down. I'm not saying I'm never going to start one again, but I understood that this was a poor way to bring new people into my world, which is what I was trying to do. Now, if I wanted to have a better way to nurture people, I think podcast is a great option. So instead, don't create a podcast and just get on other people's, right? I do dozens of podcasts every single year. And some people might say, oh, well, if you're getting on other people's, aren't you abusing them? You're taking advantage of them. Well, people don't accept me on their podcast because I ask them. They do it because they want to leverage my audience, my expertise, the things that I've spent millions of dollars and years of my life investing in, and they think it'll be good for their podcast. So it is a win-win for everybody involved. And I just think if you had to choose one of those two options, I'd rather be the person getting on somebody else's podcast than having me host a podcast. Number 34, the best form of marketing is average clients' results. If you can actually say that our average client sees these results and they're good results, and you put that in your marketing, you will beat out every other person in your industry. And a company that does this really well is Gym Launch, Alex Hormozi's company that I think they still have equity in. But if you look at some of their marketing and sales, they say, our average client sees this amount of money every single year, or we make a $1 million gym every 12 days. They say something along those lines. And you can't deny the data. You can't say, there's nothing you can say. You say, well, shit. The average client they sees this amount of more money that they're making. Average means that some people make more, some people make less, but average is what people care about. And so most people, when they're marketing, they just say these big claims. They say, make $100,000 a month, lose 50 pounds while eating pizza. They say all these things here. And going back to those 5 levels of sophistication, if your market's super sophisticated, they're just saying more is not going to be the best way to do it. But if you can say our average client sees this, it'll explode. And I have a client of mine, or a friend of mine, who has like a software company, and he's able to say our average clients see this percentage increase in their sales when they use our software. And he exploded from like $800,000 a month to over $4 million a month in less than 2 years when they started saying that they started tracking and saying our average client sees this. And so we started doing the exact same thing. We say our average client gets our entire end-to-end marketing system launched within 7 days. And then we implemented a way more robust tracking system to be able to see that our average client makes this amount of money after working with us. And so you're going to start to see that in our marketing material once we've finished collecting at least enough of a sample size to be able to make those claims online. Number 35, host at least one in-person event for your company. In-person events are incredibly valuable as sales and marketing assets. I've hosted a couple, now I've hosted dozens of masterminds with like 30 to 100 people, but I've hosted a couple of events in Miami with 300 plus people at it. And we've had the full production. It's a $200,000 cost for me to host the events, hundreds of people there. We got multiple videographers, photography people, speakers, blah, blah, blah. And these become super valuable assets because, as I'm going to talk about here in a moment with status signaling, it's a way to be like, okay, if this person was able to get this many people in an audience together to hear them speak, they have to be somewhat intelligent. They have to at least know somewhat of what they're saying. And I know that doesn't necessarily mean it, okay? I know there's people that you would think are the stupidest people in the world that are able to fill out arenas, but the point being that the majority of people think that, okay, if this person is on the news, if they have an event, if they must be doing something well, so you might as well play into that, okay? And so we still use those assets, the photos and videos of me on stage in ads and in videos and in B-roll all the time. So even though I spent, let's say, $150,000 for the event, which I made over $1.4 million at the event, so I was profitable, but even though I had to lay out that investment, it is paid time and time again, because I still have people that come up to me and be like, yeah, I came to your event a few years ago. changed my life, blah, blah, blah. And we get to use all of that stuff in our marketing and sales stuff. Now, I don't do those huge events anymore, even though people still ask me to do it, because it's also incredibly exhausting. It's very distracting for your core company, et cetera, et cetera. So I haven't done it in a little bit, but I think that everybody should at least do one event. It doesn't have to be 150,000 people, but if you can do one solid one and hire some videographers and photographers and really make it look pretty badass, you can use that for the rest of your business career. That's a perfect segue into marketing lesson number 36, which is status signaling matters. So status signaling is essentially when you're letting somebody else know that you have a certain level of status. And the funny thing is most people would say, I would never, ever want a status signal and tell someone that I have a certain level of status. I'm above that. I don't need to do that. Well, guess what, muchacho? You just status signaled right there. By saying, I don't need to status signal, that is a status signal. Okay? Let that sink in for a second. You're saying, I'm too good to play these games around status signaling, so I don't status signal. That is a status signal in of itself. So nobody is free of this game, okay? It's just how you want to play it. So there's some people that play it in the lines of like, they have, women and yachts and bottles of Dom Perignon and they're popping it and it's like a music video in their ads and in their content. And I'm not knocking those people. That's one version of status signaling. Another version of status signaling would be you saying, I don't need to status signal. I don't need money. I'm too good for money. That's a version of status signaling over there. And then there's another version of status signaling, like what I do. I call it the soft flexes. So an example of the soft flexes, I'm wearing what I would consider a nice watch, my Cartier watch. I love this watch. I bought it in France, like in Monaco. I absolutely love it. And so I'm not going like, oh, look at this. Look how rich I am with this watch on my wrist. I'm just casually talking here. I'm wearing nice clothes. I have invested in a mic that's $1,000. I have invested in a background that you're watching this video on that's a few $1,000s as well. I have a neon light behind me. All these are what I like to call soft flexes, okay? Another example would be those photos and videos of me at an event, right? Another example of status signaling would be if you were able to get in a room with somebody famous or somebody that's big in your industry and you could get a photo of them together. That's another version of like a soft status signaling. Like not if you're just using them as like like me and this person right here, but maybe if it's just this casual photo of you or video of you and that other person. So don't think that it doesn't matter because you're literally just going to lose to the person that does. But understand that depending on who you're trying to market to, you might want to play the game appropriately. So if you're trying to market to, teenagers that want to make money online, then yes, I was talking to my girlfriend's brother and he was telling me some of the people that he looks up to, and it's the guys that are like living the life with the women and the yachts, the boats, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's awesome, right? But he's not maybe attracted to my style of content because I'm not that, right? But he's not my ideal avatar, so I'm totally fine. And he is the ideal avatar of the person that is marketing that stuff. So don't think that status signaling doesn't matter. It does matter. Just make sure you're playing the game correctly. Number 37, optimize for shares whenever possible. The CEO of Instagram recently came out and they said that according to him, the number one metric that matters on the Instagram platform is shares. And it makes sense. Because shares is almost like a referral, which if you're a business owner, you watch this, you know how valuable referrals are because you're essentially putting your name behind the thing that you're sharing to somebody else. And so if I'm creating hyper specific, what I would consider to be high quality content for business owners, and then another business owner and you share that content to that other business owner, well, in that instance there, you're kind of validating that what I'm saying must be somewhat true or you like what I'm saying. And so this person should like it as well. And so at no cost to me, you have now essentially expanded or grown my audience to this other person over there just by the very fact that you're sharing it. So a lot of people focus on referrals, and when they get clients, like, oh, I want to try to get, if every client you brought another client, your business would explode, which is so true. That's quadratic growth in your business. But think of that same thing on your content side. What if every person that watched your content shared it with somebody else that was your dream client and they watch your content as well? How quickly would your content grow? And one of the best compliments I ever get whenever I'm hanging out with people or whenever I close a client or something like that, and they say, dude, it's so funny. Our Slack channel has been blown up with your videos for the past 3 months. Like we always just drop whenever there's a relevant when we share it inside of there. That's the biggest compliment I think I'll ever get because it just means that you're putting your name behind it and saying that this is this person and I believe what this guy's saying and I like the content that he's saying. And so you're kind of standing behind me and sharing it with your friends, family, coworkers, et cetera, et cetera. So try to optimize for shares whenever possible. And the easiest way that I heard somebody else say this, that to think of shares are like t-shirts, okay? So when you're creating content, you want to create content that somebody would be willing to say, like they would be willing to put that on a t-shirt. Okay. So that's why, like, I don't know, if you said something like political, you might get a lot of shares around it because all these political people are like, oh yeah, they're validating this political thought that I have. Isn't this right? Let me send it to my political buddies that have the same political thought. So that's the same thing for any kind of content. A great example of that is my girlfriend. So if you go to my discovery page on Instagram, it's planes, motorcycles, business content, and puppies, and like relationship stuff. Because my girlfriend and I will send funny videos or like real videos of people doing like lovey stuff with their girlfriend or boyfriend. And so when somebody, let's say I watch a reel and it's about treating your woman right and taking care of them and being okay to be the provider or something like that, I might share that with my girlfriend because I'm essentially saying like, yes, that's me. I agree with this content and you should get it. I might not ever wear a shirt that says like I want to be the provider, but you get the idea behind it. In some way I am wearing that shirt by sending it to my girlfriend. And marketing lesson number 38, split test frequently, but only using the ICS framework. So the ICS framework essentially asks, how important is this test? How confident are you that you are correct in this test? And how simple is it to implement this test? Simple. So it becomes ICS. And you rate each of these on a score of 1 to 10 for a total score of whatever that would be, 3 to 30. Okay? And this is important because as you really start scaling, and if you're a marketer at heart like I know that I am, you could test a billion things, literally an infinite amount of things in your business. You could test all of them. And just like I talked about earlier, which is like not all leads are created the same and creating those different smart views, if you treat every test the same, then you're really going to be missing out on those quick, easy, low-hanging fruits you could test to make a lot more money a lot faster. So a few examples of this would be like, what would be something important for our company would be something that either increases our awareness or branding, makes us more money, or makes us more recurring money. Those are the three things that are kind of like our North Stars. So if I were to test something, like let's say I were to test the wording on the footer of our sales pages, the stuff that nobody reads, that's probably gonna be a 1 out of 10 because it doesn't really do any of those things there. So instead, if I were to test something like our video sales letter for our sales page, well, that could have a direct correlation with us making more money. Maybe more people book calls, or more people that are booking the calls are qualified, or more people are more likely to close when they get on the call. So that would be maybe a 9 or a 10 out of 10. Then confident is how confident are you that when you make this test, it's going to get the result that you want. So if I were split testing the footer wording on my sales page, I don't think anybody's really looking at that, so I would say that's a 1 out of 10. But if I test the video sales letter, which I know that the majority of people before they book a call to speak with us, they are watching our video sales letter, that's probably a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. And then simple, this is the one that I think is one of the most underlooked elements because it actually would be really simple for me to be able to change the wording on the footer of my sales page. I would do it in 2 seconds, and so that might be a 10. But it's more difficult in order to write a new video sales letter, shoot it, film it, upload it, et cetera, et cetera. So that might be a 2 or a 3 out of 10. And so when you add all those things together, you get what is known as your ICS score, and then you rate your tests based off of that. And so we literally have, which I have a YouTube video on this, we literally have an Asana board for our marketing tests, and our marketing director needs to put in the ICS different scores, and it calculates the total, and then it ranks those tests in the needs to test column based on that. And so we can just always start the new test that we're going to run. We can always start with the highest ICS score. And then just as a little bonus tip here, you can run multiple tests parallel as long as they're not overlapping each other. So for example, in that same board, we might have a click to lead column, we might have a lead to call column, and we might have a call to close column. And so we might be testing a different post-booking sequence and testing a different video sales letter and testing maybe a new ad campaign in order to all at the same time because they're very independent of each other. Now, yes, they could technically have some overlap, but you kind of get the idea. Don't forget, if you want our team to build for you a custom end-to-end marketing system totally done for you and installed in your business in the next 7 days, make sure to go down below it and book a call with us now.